Have you ever wondered why lust feels like a chain you can't break? Even when you pray, even when you beg God to take it away, there's this silent battle going on inside so many hearts, a war between what we believe and what we crave. On the outside, everything looks put together. You smile, you serve, you show up to church. But on the inside, it feels like you're falling again and again and again, and nobody knows because you've learned how to hide it. That smile is your mask. That handshake is your cover. But deep down, there's a voice whispering, you're failing. You're not strong enough. You're not who you pretend to be. And here's the hardest part. You believe it. You start to think, maybe you're the only one. Maybe you're the only Christian who can't stop thinking those thoughts. The only one who feels that shame in the middle of the night. But let me tell you something powerful. The fact that you're struggling doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. And more importantly, it means you're still in the fight. Lust is not just about desire, it's about distraction. It pulls your focus away from purpose and redirects it toward guilt. It hijacks your energy, your emotions, your drive. It makes you live in cycles, moments of strength, followed by moments of regret. But this video is different. You're not here for information. You're here for transformation. And if you stay with me till the end, I promise you'll walk away not just understanding why you struggle, but knowing what to do about it. This struggle you're facing, it's not new, it's not rare, and you're not alone in it. But the enemy wins when you keep it in the dark. Because shame thrives in silence. The more you hide it, the more power it has over you. The more you pretend it's not there, the deeper it digs into your identity. It doesn't just attack your thoughts, it attacks your self-worth. And that's what breaks so many people. Not the lust itself, but the lie that says you're not good enough for God anymore. But hear this, you are not disqualified, you are not dirty, you are not beyond healing. The fact that you're watching this means something in you still believes in change. Something in you is still reaching, still hoping, still fighting. And that's everything. Because the first step to breaking out of the prison is to admit you're inside one. Not to shame yourself, but to finally get honest. Lust isn't just about what your eyes see or what your body feels. It's about what your heart is craving. Most people think it's a physical issue, but that's surface level. Underneath lust is loneliness. It's longing. It's a desperate desire to feel something real, even if it's temporary, even if it comes with guilt. Because for a brief moment, it feels like relief, a way to escape, a way to feel powerful, a way to feel wanted. But that feeling is fake. It fades, and it leaves you emptier than before. So what do? How do you escape a trap that your own mind keeps walking back into? The answer isn't found in perfection. It's found in perspective. You don't win this war by pretending you don't have urges. You win it by learning to redirect them. Your body isn't the enemy. Your desire isn't evil. But when desire rules you, it will ruin you. And when you avoid talking about it, it grows in secret. It's not just a spiritual fight. It's psychological. Every time you give in, your brain forms a habit loop. It remembers what felt good. It carves a shortcut toward that pleasure. And every time you repeat it, the pathway gets stronger. This is not weakness, it's wiring. And the good news is, wiring can be rewired. Your brain can change, but it takes awareness. It takes discipline. It takes daily decisions when no one's watching. That's why I want you to lean in, because this isn't about shaming you. It's about waking you up. You were not created to live stuck in the same sin, haunted by the same thoughts, defeated by the same lie. You were made for victory. You were designed for freedom. And freedom doesn't come when you're perfect. It comes when you're persistent. You don't need to run from God when you fail. You need to run to Him again and again. No matter how many times He's not keeping count, He's keeping you close. So stay with this, because the deeper truth is this. You are not a slave to lust. You are not owned by your past. You are not your worst moment. And if you're willing to look honestly, to fight humbly, and to show up daily, even broken, you will find your way out. Not just out of lust, but into purpose, into clarity, into peace. This battle can be won, and it starts right here, right now. Stay with me. The real answers are coming. Shame is the root that keeps this struggle alive. It doesn't just weigh you down, it silences you. It tells you that you're the only one, that you should have been over this by now. that real Christians don't deal with this, but that's a lie. And the longer you believe it, the longer you stay stuck. Shame turns a personal battle into a prison. It isolates you, convinces you to hide, and makes you afraid to reach for help. That's how lust wins. Not through desire, but through secrecy. The truth is, what we hide grows stronger. When you bury guilt inside and lock it away, it doesn't go away. It festers. It rewires your thinking. You start looking at yourself not as someone who's struggling, but as someone who's broken beyond repair. That's what shame does. It doesn't just point to what you did. It tries to redefine who you are. It attaches your worth to your weakness. And if you let that belief settle in, you stop fighting. You stop believing freedom is possible, but you are not what you struggle with. You are not your lowest moment. You are not defined by a secret habit. What you're going through doesn't make you less of a Christian, it makes you human. And humans were never meant to battle this alone. Healing begins when honesty begins. When you bring what's hidden into the light, it loses its grip. The shame starts to break, and suddenly you can breathe again. This is why so many stay trapped, not because they don't want to be free, but because they think they have to pretend they already are. They're more afraid of being judged than they are of being enslaved. So they fake strength, they wear masks. But masks never heal you. Masks protect your image, not your soul. If you want real freedom, you have to choose truth over appearance, vulnerability over performance, courage over comfort. And that courage starts with a decision. No more hiding, no more silence, no more letting shame write your story. It's time to take your power back. Lust feels powerful because the flesh is loud. It screams for attention. It craves satisfaction. And the truth is, it doesn't care about your values, your beliefs, or your future. It only cares about now. It wants pleasure now, relief now, escape now. That's why the pull feels so strong, because the body doesn't understand consequences. It only understands comfort. And if you let the flesh lead, it will take you places your spirit never wanted to go. Your mind is wired to chase what feels good. That's not weakness, that's biology. When you repeat a behavior, your brain builds a shortcut, a habit loop. It remembers the pleasure and ignores the pain. That's why the temptation shows up even when you know better, even when your heart wants freedom, because the flesh doesn't respond to logic, it responds to feeling. And if lust has been your outlet for stress, sadness, boredom, or loneliness, your brain starts treating it like a solution. But it's not a solution, it's a cycle. One that keeps you stuck and makes you feel powerless. But you are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of your impulses. What you feed grows, and what you starve dies. That means the more you say yes to the flesh, the stronger it gets. But every time you say no, every time you walk away, even when it hurts, you are retraining your mind. You are weakening the pull. You are taking control back from the patterns that once ruled you. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming aware. When you understand how your brain and body work, you stop blaming yourself and start building yourself. You start to see that discipline isn't punishment, it's power. Real strength is doing what's right, not just what feels good. And the more you practice that strength, the louder your spirit becomes. The more peace you feel, the more focus you gain, and the more purpose you unlock. The flesh is loud, but it's not in charge, not anymore. The battle is real, but so is your authority to overcome it. And when you realize that, everything begins to change. One of the deepest reasons so many stay stuck is because they confuse temptation with failure. They believe that being tempted means they've already fallen, that just having the thought is a sign of weakness. But temptation is not sin. It's not proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're alive and still fighting. Even the strongest people feel temptation. Even the most faithful feel the pull. What matters is not the thought, it's the choice. When you don't understand the difference, you start living in defeat even before you fall. You feel guilty for the struggle itself. You start punishing yourself for emotions you didn't choose. That guilt builds shame, and shame makes you want to give up. So you start believing lies like, if I'm tempted, I must not be strong enough, or if I really love God, I wouldn't even think this way. But that's not truth. That's distortion. And distortion is the enemy's favorite weapon. Temptation is not a sign of weakness. It's a signal to lean on strength. It's not something to fear. It's something to face. The difference between falling and standing is not whether the thought comes, but what you do with it. The mind is a battlefield, and thoughts will come. But you are not your thoughts. You are not your urges. You are not your impulses. You are the one who decides what stays and what leaves. You can't always control what knocks on the door, but you can control what you let in. That's where freedom begins, not in perfection, but in power. The power to pause, the power to choose, the power to say, this isn't who I am anymore. Every time you resist, every time you walk away, every time you catch the thought before it turns into action, you build spiritual and mental muscle. And over time, that muscle becomes strength. Temptation doesn't make you guilty. Giving up makes you empty. But choosing to fight again and again, that's what makes you free. Lust doesn't just affect what you do, it attacks who you are. It chips away at your identity until you start forgetting your worth. You begin to see yourself through the lens of your struggle. And that's dangerous. Because when you forget who you are, you stop living like the person you were created to be. You stop dreaming. You stop leading. You stop walking in confidence. All because one area of your life feels out of control. What makes lust so painful isn't just the act. It's what it does to your soul. It makes you feel distant from God, distant from others, distant from yourself. You try to pray, but something feels off. You try to focus, but the shame lingers. You want to do better, but your energy is drained. That's not just spiritual guilt. That's psychological exhaustion. It's the weight of carrying a double life. Smiling on the outside, but struggling inside. And that emotional split, it steals your peace. But here's the truth you need to hear. You are not beyond restoration. What you've done does not cancel who you are. God doesn't define you by your lowest moment. He calls you by your name, not your mistake. And the moment you start believing that again, everything starts to shift. Because identity is the foundation. If you see yourself as broken, you'll live like you can't be fixed. But if you start to see yourself as someone who's growing, healing, becoming, you'll rise. You don't need to wait until you're perfect to walk in purpose. You just need to be honest. You just need to show up, messy and all. Every great comeback starts with the decision to stop running from yourself, to stop pretending you're fine, to stop letting one struggle speak louder than your calling. This isn't about willpower, it's about truth. The truth that you are still worthy, the truth that you are still loved, the truth that your identity is not shame, it's strength. And the moment you reclaim that, lust begins to lose its power over your life. Lust grows strongest in isolation. When no one knows what you're battling, the battle becomes heavier. You convince yourself that no one would understand, that if people really knew what you struggle with, they'd walk away. So you stay silent. You carry the weight alone. But the truth is, isolation doesn't protect you. It traps you. It keeps you locked in a cycle of pretending on the outside and collapsing on the inside. We weren't designed to fight alone. Accountability isn't weakness. It's wisdom. You need people in your life who don't just see your strength, but understand your struggle. People who speak truth when your mind is filled with lies. People who remind you who you are when you forget. Lust thrives when you're disconnected. But when you're surrounded by truth, its voice gets weaker. That's why the most powerful step you can take is to bring someone into the fight with you. Someone safe. Someone honest. Someone who can walk beside you, not judge you. You might think, but what if they see me differently? That's fear talking, and fear always exaggerates. The right people won't see you as dirty. They'll see you as brave, because honesty is bravery. Admitting the struggle isn't failure. It's the first sign of freedom. And the moment you bring light into the dark, the shame begins to melt. The grip of the habit starts to loosen. And slowly, you begin to remember what peace feels like again. You don't have to share your struggle with everyone, but you need to share it with someone. Because the more you isolate, the more you believe that this is just who you are now. But that's not who you are. You are not your secrecy. You are not your silence. You are not your slip-ups. You are someone who still has the power to change, and the right voices around you will remind you of that every single day. Healing starts in community. Real strength grows in connection. You weren't meant to do this alone, and you don't have to anymore. There's a reason the battle feels like it never ends. It's because it's not just physical. It's spiritual, it's mental, it's emotional. There's a war going on inside you, and sometimes it feels like both sides are you. One side wants purity, peace, and purpose. The other wants release, escape, and numbness. And when those two forces collide, it can feel exhausting. You wake up hopeful, but go to bed feeling like you failed again. That's not just about behavior. That's the sound of inner conflict. And it's real. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not fake. You're a human being fighting a war between flesh and spirit, and that war isn't new. Even the strongest people in history have felt it, wanting to do what's right, but feeling pulled to what's wrong. It's not that you don't love God, it's that the flesh doesn't submit easily. It resists growth. It resists discipline. And every time you try to break free, the resistance gets louder. But resistance is not defeat. Resistance is proof that your spirit is still alive. If you weren't fighting, you wouldn't feel the tension. That pull you feel, that's not failure. That's your spirit refusing to stay silent. That's the real you rising up, refusing to settle. Because even when you slip, even when you fall, there's still a voice inside whispering, you were made for more than this. And that voice needs to get louder. This isn't about suppressing desire. It's about surrendering control. It's about recognizing that the battle isn't just against lust. It's against anything that keeps you from becoming who you were created to be. And the more you feed the Spirit through truth, connection, and consistency, the weaker the flesh becomes. Not overnight, but day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice. You are not fighting this war alone. There's strength inside of you that hasn't even been tapped yet. And every time you choose to keep going, that strength grows. You may feel like you're in the middle of the fight, but you are also in the middle of becoming something stronger, something freer, something unstoppable. One of the greatest lies lust tells you is that you've gone too far, that you've messed up too many times, that grace ran out for you, and once that lie settles in, you stop trying. You stop believing you're worth saving. You stop asking for help because you think you've already used up your second chances. But grace doesn't have a limit. Grace isn't earned, it's received. And no matter how far you've fallen, it's still reaching for you. When you underestimate grace, you begin to live like you have to earn your way back to God. You start performing instead of healing. You start hiding instead of confessing. And that cycle wears you down. You pray, but it feels empty. You try, but the guilt is louder than your faith. And eventually you stop believing change is even possible. But grace was never about your performance. It was always about your position. As someone loved, seen, and chosen, even in your worst moment, you don't need to clean yourself up before you come back. You come back, and then the healing begins. That's what grace does. It meets you in the mess. It doesn't shame you into change. It lifts you into it. It reminds you that you're not disqualified, that your story isn't over, that you're still in the process of becoming. And even when you feel stuck, grace is still moving. The more you believe in grace, the more you begin to believe in your own transformation, not because you're strong enough, but because you're not alone. And that shift in mindset is where real power begins. Because the moment you stop trying to prove your worth and start receiving God's love, you stop running in circles. You start walking in freedom. You don't have to be perfect to be free. You just have to stop believing the lie that you never will be. Grace isn't your backup plan. It's your starting point. And the moment you embrace it, shame loses its voice. The weight lifts, and you finally remember, you were never fighting for forgiveness. You were fighting from it. When you've lived in the same cycle long enough, it starts to feel normal. Lust becomes the escape, the secret relief, the coping mechanism. And even when you hate it, part of you clings to it, not because you love it, but because you don't know who you'd be without it. That's what the cycle does. It blurs your vision. It convinces you that this is just the way things are now. That change is too far. That freedom is for others, not for you. But cycles can be broken. They are not stronger than your will. They are not stronger than truth. The first step is recognizing that you're not addicted to lust. You're addicted to escape. Lust is just the symptom. The real issue is what you're running from: pain, loneliness, fear, disappointment. It's not about the desire, it's about the distraction. Because when life feels overwhelming, lust offers a shortcut to numbness. But that shortcut always leads to regret. And the more you take it, the more disconnected you feel from your real self. Breaking the loop starts with facing what you've been avoiding. It starts with getting real about what triggers the urge. It's not just about saying no to lust, it's about saying yes to healing. When you start addressing the deeper pain, the craving begins to fade because the urge loses power when it's exposed to truth. You don't just need to fight the behavior. You need to replace the reason it exists. You are stronger than you think. Every cycle has a crack. Every loop has an exit. And you don't have to be perfect to find it. You just have to be willing to stop running, to stop reaching for temporary comfort and start reaching for something lasting. Peace, purpose, wholeness. This isn't about behavior management. It's about soul restoration. You're not just trying to stop doing something. You're learning to become someone. And that version of you is waiting on the other side of your next decision. Not a huge leap, just one honest step. That's how the loop breaks. One step at a time, one day at a time, one truth at a time. True strength isn't found in never falling. It's found in rising each time you do. It's not about perfection. It's about persistence. Every time you choose to stand up after failure, you build resilience. Every time you refuse to give in to temptation, you carve out new pathways in your mind. Real strength is forged in those moments when no one is watching, when the battle is silent, and the stakes feel highest. Strength is not about hiding your scars, it's about owning them. It's about saying, I have struggled, but I am still here. When you accept your brokenness without shame, you unlock power. You stop letting past mistakes define you and start letting your fight refine you. That's when transformation begins. Not because you're flawless, but because you're fearless in your pursuit of freedom. You were never meant to carry this alone. You were never meant to live in fear of your own desires. Real strength comes from surrender. Surrender to truth, to grace, and to the process of change. When you stop trying to control every thought and start focusing on what you can control, your actions, your habits, your environment, you build momentum. That momentum fuels your growth. It's okay to fail. It's okay to stumble. What matters is what you do next. Will you let failure keep you down, or will you let it teach you? Will you let shame silence you, or will you let courage speak louder? Strength grows when you decide that your purpose is bigger than your urges. When you believe that your identity is more than your mistakes. Every day you get to choose, to fight, to rise, to become stronger than the struggle. That's real power. That's real freedom. And that power is already inside you, waiting for you to claim it. This fight is not about denying your humanity. It's about reclaiming your destiny. Your purpose is bigger than the urges that try to hold you back. Every moment you feel the pull, remember who you are beneath the struggle. You were created with intention, designed for greatness, called to live a life that goes beyond temporary satisfaction. Your value is not tied to your failures or your battles. It's rooted in something far deeper. The urge to give in is real. The temptation is strong, but your future is stronger. Every choice you make right now is a vote for the person you want to become. It's a step toward freedom. You don't have to wait for some perfect moment. You don't have to have all the answers. You just need the courage to choose what lifts you up over what drags you down. When you start living with that mindset, everything changes. You start seeing challenges as opportunities to grow, not reasons to quit. You begin to view setbacks as temporary, not permanent. The battle no longer defines you. Your response to the battle does. You become the master of your story instead of a prisoner to your past. You were never meant to be trapped in this cycle. You were meant to break it, to rise above, to stand tall in your truth. It won't be easy. It won't be instant, but it will be worth it. Because every time you resist, every time you fight, Every time you choose yourself over the lie, you're rewriting your future. This is your moment, your choice, your power. You can either let lust control your life or you can control your lust. You have the strength. You have the grace. You have the destiny. Now it's time to step into it and own it.